Hello and welcome to the Rise Up with Orion podcast. Thank you so much for joining our new season that we're launching here in 2024. Our subject matter and our expert today is perfect for the beginning of the year. So let me introduce our expert, Rachel. Rachel's worked with numerous Orion participants in many capacities, from customer service to health assessments to health coaching. And now she is one of our account executives across the country. So throughout her career with Orion, she's learned that taking a person-centered approach always pays off. Her approach to well-being is focused on people feeling whole in all areas of their life. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us from beautiful Texas.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Happy to be
Yeah.
here.
So excited. Even though we're living in different places, we are surrounded by snow here. So I hope you are soaking in the sun for us
Yes.
as our seasons are all over the place. So, Rachel, I don't know if you knew it or not, but last Friday was National Quitters Day, which is the day that almost 80% of people quit their New Year's resolutions. For me, I can honestly say I'm still standing strong, still going full bore ahead with my New Year's resolution. But what about you?
Oh, that is a good question. What a good day to be talking about what we're talking about. So, I have to preface last week, as everybody here who's listening probably knows, because we had to cancel our live session. Last week was a crazy week for me. So, I will say, although my New Year's resolution has been a bit derailed, I haven't quit just yet, but I had a I like to do a 30 days of yoga challenge every January on YouTube. One of my favorite YouTubers does 30 days of yoga. And I think out of the, let's see, 16 days she's posted so far, I think I've only done 12 of the days because last week was so busy. So I will still do all 30 days. It just might not be 30 consecutive days. How's that?
There you go. See, and I think what's great is you didn't just do 12 and say, "Well, I blew it. I'm out." I I
Yeah,
quit. You don't have to quit even though you haven't met it at 100%.
so true. That is so true.
Yeah. So, Rachel, tell me a little bit about New Year's resolutions, kind of going back into that it's something that many people do. Believe it or not, it's mostly Americans that do this. Tell me a little bit about kind of resolution successes and fails, and why is this so hard?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it is, isn't it? I feel like New Year's resolutions, whether we love them or we hate them, they're on our mind this time of year. I don't know how many conversations I had from, December 26th through last week, essentially, of what are your goals this year? What are some of your New Year's resolutions? Just in casual conversation with friends and coworkers and everything. They are everywhere. So whether you love them or you hate them, they're really hard to escape.
Yeah.
Um, so today I thought we would talk a little bit about a different approach to New Year's resolutions because, we are living in interesting times. We're in a post-COVID world, and I feel like a lot of people are just tired. People are
Mm-hmm.
tired, people are overwhelmed, people are stressed out. There's economic reasons for it. We're all just a little bit burnt out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people have kind of had it with this idea of always striving to do more and do better. And so this talk today, I was hoping to focus a little bit more instead of what we're doing, how we're doing it, all these things,
Mm-hmm.
instead just kind of focusing a little bit more on the why and the heart and soul of building up a life that we love through, values-based goals rather than just goals for goals.
Right. Well, and I think there is a certain aspect of, keeping up with the Joneses. What is my New Year's resolutions? Because everyone in my network is doing it. So I feel like I have to do it, whether or not it's reasonable, whether or not it even makes sense. I mean, most of the time, people set these New Year's resolutions that are so lofty that, 3 weeks in, they're like, oh, well, that was a great idea. But there is no darn way that is happening this year because it's not realistic. So I love, what you're saying about the why, because it's
Yeah.
not about the Joneses and it's not about this, big lofty goal. It brings it right down to a level that is really personal.
Right. And it's funny because so the week before New Year's, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and every podcast I was listening to had an advertisement for doing a juice cleanse. So I found
Mm,
myself the week before New Year's hearing all these ads about hey, if you do a juice cleanse, you'll get a reset in the new year. Your skin will look better. You're going to lose weight. And I found
Mm-hmm.
myself thinking, after hearing this advertisement 2 or 3 times, I found myself thinking, I should try that juice cleanse. That sounds great.
Oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
felt like just this automatic decision. But then when I stopped and thought about it, I thought, but why would I want a juice cleanse? I mean, does my skin look bad right
Yeah.
now? Do I really feel like I need to lose weight? But these people are telling me that that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, okay, if I wanted to lose weight or if I wanted to get healthier in the new year, are there goals that I could set that might be less expensive than a juice cleanse,
Mm-hmm.
might be better for my
Sure.
mental health than a juice cleanse, might be better for my physical health than a juice cleanse, like
Right.
exercising more. So, sometimes we make these automatic decisions about the goals that we set based off of advertising or based off of
Mm-hmm.
societal expectations. So and so's losing weight. So and so's asking me if I'm going to lose weight. So I'm going to
Right.
make that my goal even if it doesn't really feel that important to what my core values are.
Yes. And I love the new focus. And I want to kind of bring up, because on this podcast, we've talked about multiple times over the last couple of years since I've been hosting the podcast, SMART goals.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're setting SMART goals, and especially for the New Year's resolution. Is this still in line with our values?
That's a good question. And yes and no, right? We can get so caught up on making the SMART goals, making them specific, measurable, attainable, this checklist. But we're forgetting when we're looking just at the SMART goals, we're forgetting about the why behind it, which,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, is where it needs to start. The why, we need to have a solid foundation of why we're doing what we're doing for the SMART goals to then be able to take
Mm-hmm.
effect and to really make sense for us. We need to almost be able to visualize the outcome that's going to happen in the life that we're going to live as a result of this. And really getting in check with what our core values are can help us discover that why. And then, yeah, let's make it as specific as possible so that you know how to get to that why. But I always like to think of that movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, when
Mm-hmm.
they're at the museum and Cameron, Ferris's friend, is having his existential crisis in the museum looking at this painting. And it's a famous painting where, from a distance, it's a scene of, these families and these individuals at the park.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get closer and closer to it, you see that the painting is actually made up of just dots.
Mm-hmm.
Brush strokes are just teeny tiny dots. So in my mind, our actions are these dots, right? And the brush strokes that make up the painting. But as we zoom out, we need to have a clear picture of what these dots are trying to accomplish. Otherwise, we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to have a mess of dots, right? So we
Yeah.
need to have the vision of what kind of life we want to live and what that's guided by. Otherwise, we're just going to be doing juice cleanses and all these radical things
Mm-hmm.
helter skelter because that's what the advertisements are telling us to do. And then we
Right.
end up feeling like we need to do more. We end up feeling like something is still missing. What is it that's missing? I need to do more, more, more. Instead of focusing on more, let's dig down deeper, and instead of going
Mm-hmm.
broader, we're going to go deeper to build a life that we love through our core values. So, do SMART goals still apply? Absolutely. They're super important, but if we skip to the SMART goals, we're missing a vital step.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the big picture of why we're doing what we're doing with our actions.
Yes, I love it. It really circles back to what we talked about in the December podcast, where, we're forming a picture, putting a picture frame around ourselves and, envisioning what that is. And guess what? We are the star of that show. We are in the center of the picture. And this is one of those times where we do need to envision that. And it's you in the picture frame,
Exactly.
to figure out what that means. So, Rachel, I would love for you to guide us a little bit on that, so people can really start to think about what core values are and how that applies to them in the center of the picture frame. So let's kind of think about that and guide us a little bit on where to start with something that to figure out that why and the me behind this.
Absolutely. So I have a little exercise that I'm going to do with you, Tara, if that's okay with you. If you have a pen and paper close by, and anyone who's listening, grab a pen and paper. You can pause this and go grab a pen and paper so that we can do a little exercise. This is an exercise. So a little bit about me. I'm in graduate school right now. I'm studying mental health counseling. And so I am not a mental health professional yet, but just in the training to become one. And so this is an exercise that I did with one of my classes that was so profound for me. And so when Tara and I were talking about me doing the podcast, I thought, what a great exercise to bring out to people to help them recognize their core values. So,
Mhm.
so if you have a pen and paper, do you have one, Tara?
Got it. I'm ready.
Awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to list out some common values that are out there. And when you hear one that for you strikes a chord as to one of your core values, I want you to write it down and try to write down at least 5. If you hear more, great, but try to write down at least 5 of these values that really resonate with you. And I'm going to read them. If I'm reading them too fast, for those of you at home, if I'm reading them too fast, we are going to post this list in the show notes. So don't feel like you have to be writing everything down. We'll have something that you can look at as well to go back on. But I'll just read off some of these values. And then again, you write them down as you hear one that stands out to you.
Ready.
Okay. So authenticity, achievement, adventure, autonomy, balance, beauty, boldness, compassion, connection, challenge, citizenship, community, competency, contribution, creativity, curiosity, determination, fairness, faith, friendships, fun, growth, happiness, humor, influence, inner peace, kindness, knowledge, learning, love, loyalty, meaningful work, openness, optimism, pleasure, recognition, security, spirituality, success, wealth, wisdom. Okay. Those are the ones I'm going to list off. Were you able to, I don't know if I read that too fast. Were you able
Yeah,
to?
no, I was. Yeah, I actually
Okay.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them.
8 of them.
But
Okay.
I could narrow it down. Let's see.
Okay. Okay. Well, you're going to have to, because that's what we're going to do
Got it.
next. So
Okay.
you're going to take that. I need you to cross. So you have 8. Anyone at home, start with at least 5. But Tara, I want you to narrow yours down to 5. So cross off 3 that you would do without if you had to. And let me know.
Okay, I'm ready. Yes,
Okay.
I've got it.
Okay. Now, I want you to take a deep breath, and something happens and you have to cross off 2 more off of your list. Cross off 2 more of your values so that you're only left with 3 at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I need you to cross off 1 more. Something else has happened. You can only take 2 of your core values with you. Cross off 1 more.
Got it.
Okay. Now, something else has happened and you have to cross off 1 more. So you are only left with 1 of your top values.
Okay.
Okay. Are you able to do it?
I did it. I don't love
it,
but I did it because I don't want this many bad things happening. But yes, I have it.
It hurts, doesn't it? A little bit. So what was left for you? What was your top value that when everything else was gone for you stuck?
Connection.
Connection.
Yeah,
Tell me
that was the
about
one that
that.
was left.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really interesting because some of my other ones were adventure and friendship and love and happiness. And I feel like I was able to cross some of those off if I left connection.
Hmm.
Connection with myself, connection with, my community, connection with my family. So it was one of those. So, well, maybe it's not adventure and fun. The connections, I think, are what are going to be there for me at the end of time,
I love
So, yeah.
That's really beautiful. I love that. And that's so true. It kind of helps you boil down, well, maybe adventure is important to you because that's how you connect with people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Love is important to you because that's what helps you feel connected to others,
Mm-hmm.
is your love for
Yep.
them. So it's interesting how when you boil down in this way where you have to, where
Yeah.
I'm forcing you to do it, you're
Yeah.
able to see that it all comes down to you, to connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So again, I'm in graduate school, and this was a program, or this was a thing that we did in a class where we were learning techniques for group
Mm-hmm.
counseling. So I did this with a group, and we're all sharing with each other what our values were. And a lot of us had very similar things. It came down to love, it came down to connection, it came down to like family
Mm-hmm.
and community and things. And there was one person in our group who her core value when it came down to it was adventure. And we all
Yeah.
kind of stopped and talked about it because again, there's no right or wrong to this, right?
Mm-mm.
But it was so
Yeah.
fascinating to hear her tell her story about her childhood and why adventure was such a core value for her, and how when she looks for opportunities, she looks for the adventure that comes along with it because that's what makes
Yeah.
her full in her life. And I thought that was so beautiful because we can have our rote answers, right? But when we really boil it down to what's important to us, there's a reason why, feeling
Mm-hmm.
that connection is important. Mine is also connection. Connection with my family,
Mm.
specifically my kids, was the one that was most important for me. And then my top two were like connection and autonomy, like being able to
Yeah.
choose outcomes for myself were really important. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm
Well, I
curious.
think, Rachel, one question as I'm thinking of this as well is, kind of circling back to this, because my answer today would be completely different than my answer 10 years ago before I had kids. Maybe I was married at that point. But again, I think things shift. And so circling back to this on possibly a regular occasion, whatever you think that is, I think
Yeah.
would be very interesting and helpful for people because things change.
That's so true. And I'm really glad you said that because, yeah, we have different phases of life. What you value as a mother is going to be different from what you valued when you were in college or a
Right.
teenager, or,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you're an empty nester in the future, that's going to be different as well. Things are going to change and shift. And that's the lovely thing about life, is that
Yeah.
change is a normal process of it. And sometimes that can be a little bit scary for us.
Mm-hmm.
But really coming back to this on a regular basis to see, okay, is that picture that I'm painting of my life still going in the
Mm-hmm.
direction I want it to go? And checking in with that regularly. So when it comes to New Year's resolutions, maybe instead of having a goal that we think we're going to set, I'm going to lose X amount of pounds, maybe instead we find a word. We find a word
Mm-hmm.
that defines our year, right? And it can be different every year. But maybe connection is the word of the year
Mm-hmm.
this year. And maybe it's your word every year, right? But having
Yeah.
that word that guides what our actions are and what our goals are, um, can help us visualize that picture.
Well, and I love that these words dig a little bit deeper than most of us do for New Year's resolutions, because New Year's resolutions typically in my mind have been actions. Like I will exercise, I will not drink, I will meditate. They're actions that we take. These are a little bit more holistic, where connection can be so many different things, or even adventure. I love that one. That was the first one that I wrote down. But again, it can mean so many different things, and again, it really allows us some grace that it's not just exercise, it's not just meditate. It
Exactly.
kind of opens up that box a little bit and allows it to be a little bit more fluid, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, because you meditate to connect with yourself, right? You go on
Right.
adventures to connect with people, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
helps you redefine yourself. It gives you the opportunity to redefine your goals every day, every month,
Mm-hmm.
every season. And I do have to say, it's so funny that we do New Year's resolutions because wintertime is the time of year where, like, naturally, biologically, we want to hibernate. We're
Mm-hmm.
mammals, we
Yep.
want, it's dark outside, it's cold outside, we want to stay indoors. why is this the time of year that we push ourselves to make all these life altering changes? Why is this the
Mhm.
time? Instead, we should be setting spring resolutions where, when the
Yeah.
sun is coming out and we naturally have more energy, but perhaps our New Year's resolutions can be focused on, okay, how can I connect when I am tired?
Hmm.
Maybe it is more nights at home with the kids where we're just playing games or sitting around the fire rather than, pushing ourselves to do X, Y, or Z, right?
Yeah.
So even going with where our energy feels is we feel our energy is taking us can be really helpful to just set goals that feel right and feel wholesome for our mental and our physical health too.
Yeah. And I think you're creating the building blocks here, with this creating, your why, or the me in your picture frame, if you will. And then you're really setting the SMART goals that are holding that up. Am I reading this right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the big picture is here. We understand what our values are, and then we can set smart goals that help us achieve those values. So we can get specific
Hmm.
and measurable and attainable. What is it? Realistic and time
Hmm.
a time
Yeah.
constraint? Yes, yeah. So we can really get specific. And I just want to emphasize too that the way that we think about our goals influences what we believe about them. And our
Hmm.
beliefs are what determine our actions, right?
Right.
So what we're thinking about how we're doing, if we're succeeding, is going to determine how we feel about it. And how we feel about it gives us the energy or takes the energy away from our actions, right?
Hmm.
And so it really all comes back to starting with our minds and being kind to ourselves. So if it's hard to reach these goals, if it's difficult, if we're lacking the energy to do everything that we want to, coming back to where our thoughts are and having that compassion for ourselves is important. I
Hmm.
like to say I'm the mental health girl. When I'm at a party with my friends or anything like that, they always say like, "Oh, if you need to know where Rachel is at the party, she's usually in the corner talking to someone about their childhood trauma." Because I'm the mental health girl. I am always talking to people about, well, how can you be kinder to yourself? How
Hmm.
can you have a little more compassion for yourself? So that's what I really want to underline with our discussion today, too, is, making sure that if things are challenging for you, recognize that change is hard.
Hmm.
Um, our brain's job is to make things easier for ourselves.
Right.
That's the whole purpose. It creates neural pathways, which are essentially shortcuts, so that it doesn't have to think about breathing. When's the last
Right.
time you thought about taking a breath? You don't have to. Your brain is trained to create a neural pathway that's going to make it easy for you to breathe and to survive. And
Hmm.
so if you're stuck in these ruts with these goals that you've set, that's a very normal thing. Don't be hard on yourself with it. It means you're human. Congratulations. You're
Right. Yes.
it takes
Allow
time.
yourself the grace, for sure. As I mentioned earlier, this isn't about failure, and Rachel, you've only done 12 of your 17 yoga practices. You could
I
keep,
know.
so again, it's not about a failure. It's about continuing on. So when, you hear that 80%, quit their New Year's resolutions, it makes me wonder, well, why did you quit?
Yeah.
Why didn't you just keep going? Even though it wasn't perfect, guess what? No such thing as perfect. Keep going, rather than throwing it out the window. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important. And like I said, allowing yourself the grace, to fall
Yeah.
down, dust
Absolutely.
yourself off, keep going.
Yeah. And I was a coach here for a long time, since 2012, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so I worked with a lot of clients, and that's one of my favorite things to remind my clients of is health. And this is going to sound so corny, so bear with me, but health is about the journey. It is not
Mhm.
a destination, because you're never going to get to this point in life where you're just healthy and you don't need to stop. You can just, and you can stop. Like, you don't just get
Yes.
to the point where
Hmm.
I'm healthy now and the rest of my life I don't have to do anything, right? It's a day-to-day practice. And so we never essentially get to that destination of being healthy. It's day in, day out, doing the little things that build us up and support us and sustain us in a healthy way. Um,
Hmm.
and that's not to make anyone feel discouraged, but rather to just say, hey, if you have a hard day with it, that's okay. Tomorrow is a new day. Every minute
Hmm.
is a new minute. You can recommit yourself whenever you feel ready, because it is a lifelong discovery of your health journey.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important too. You know, there isn't a magic pill. And guess what? If we could stop aging, maybe maybe we could do that. But unfortunately, we're all a day older every day.
Right.
So the journey does not stop. And unfortunately, sometimes it becomes harder, depending on where we are in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have another exercise, just kind of in this vein of, being kind to ourselves and giving ourselves the opportunity um, to be gentle and to maybe start with our thoughts, thinking kinder thoughts about ourselves. So if you
Yeah.
still have your pen and paper, I have another exercise. And this is a very common exercise for cognitive behavioral therapy, which means you start with your thoughts. And as you change your thoughts, your behaviors and your patterns begin to change. That's what the cognitive behavioral therapy means. So this is a really common exercise that therapists, counselors might use. So anyway, so if everyone wants to get out their pen and paper again, I want you to think of a negative thought or an unhelpful thought that you might have about yourself. Now, if we're talking about goals, it could be, I'm a failure because I didn't do this, or I'm never going to reach my goal, or I'll never be healthy, or I'm lazy, just anything that goes along with that. But thinking of a thought or a belief that you have about yourself, that's just not helpful. So think about that for just a minute, write it down. And once you've had a chance to write that down, I want you to start thinking about, how do you behave because you think that way about yourself? So how I'm going to go with the thought, I'm lazy, um, or I don't have motivation. So if you think that about yourself, how do you move throughout your world and throughout your day when that thought is there for you? Does it change your behaviors? I want you to think about that. Maybe write a couple thoughts down about it if you can. But just think about the burden of carrying that thought with you. Now, next, I want you to think of the complete opposite of this thought. So if your thought is, I'm lazy, the complete opposite would be, I have energy to do what I want to do. If the thought is, I'm a failure, it's, I have the capacity to succeed, right? But write down what the complete opposite of your negative thought is. And now I want you to close your eyes for just a minute and consider that this positive thought is already true, because it is. Spoiler alert, it is already true. But I want you to just close your eyes and think for a minute about what it would be like if you were to move through the world with that positive thought versus the negative one. So I have the energy to achieve what I want to achieve. What would it be like if that was your marching, if that was always marching in the background for you? I have the energy, or I am a motivated person, or I have the capacity to succeed. And just recognizing the difference in energy when you're picturing a day where that is your song in the back of your head, the energy is so different there.
Mm-hmm.
And so again,
Yeah.
it comes back to, it starts with our thoughts and telling ourselves these negative things about, well, I didn't reach my goal, so I might as well quit, doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit us. And so
Mm-hmm.
having the courage to change that thought and to keep moving forward will be what eventually gets us on that path to a healthier life.
Yeah, you kind of just created a mantra for us. And I love how that really goes in line with, our values. We now kind of have a mantra, and mine is totally backwards. But again, we fixate so much on the negative, that it really does you have to be very intentional. As you had pictured, that picture frame of you in it. Now you're picturing yourself in a completely different light.
Yeah.
Yes, you're still the center of that picture, but it's different now.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really cool podcast that I like to listen to. It's called oh, dang it, what is it called? It's called the Life Coach School.
Mm.
It's this woman named Brooke Castillo, and she had a really interesting statement about living a life from your values. She said, if you live a life from the place of your values, your life will become valuable to you.
Mm.
And that quote on the surface is like, well, duh. But then I started thinking about, what does the word valuable actually mean? What are some other words that valuable could mean. Beautiful,
Yep.
inspiring, worth a lot,
Yes. Yeah.
meaningful, precious, right? So if you live a life from the place of your values, your life will become more beautiful. Your life will become more precious. Your life will become more meaningful, inspiring to you. And I think that's such a beautiful thing because we get up, we go to work, we take care of the household duties, we go to bed, we repeat, right? And it can be so easy to get stuck in these things. But as we identify that connection is something that's important to us, or adventure is something important to us, well, then we can take steps to making that life that we desire, to connect more, to make more time for adventure. And that's my goal for my
Well, and I love it too, as I kind of wrote down your quote here, where I could insert my word into it. If you live your life from a place of connection, which was my word, your life will become more valuable to you. So again, it's kind of like cut and paste, but to put your word in there.
Yeah.
Why not make that our year resolution? Whether or not you were a quitter with your other New Year's resolution. I love the way this feels for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And I never thought of that. I'm going to go write mine on, I'm going to go write mine on my mirror so that I can see it. Yeah. I love that.
Absolutely. I think it's so great. And Rachel, I think this is one of the podcasts where it's truly an actionable. I love how you guided us through this today because it really brings it into a completely different light. So I think you hit the nail on the head with, not only the subject, but also making it really personal for people. So thank you for doing that from your mental health hat that you bring to Oriant. I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Yes. And as Rachel mentioned earlier, the show notes, we will post all of those words, those values that Rachel listed off. This would be an amazing thing to do with your family. I wish my kids were a little bit older, but again, I could see, maybe I'll do it with my husband and see what happens. But again, to kind of look at that. So again, to use that exercise for yourself and for others, I think would be really, really helpful. So Rachel, thank you so much for being here and bouncing back from your week last week, and good luck with your 5 extra yoga sessions.
Thank you.
And just yes, you'll get it. You'll be very limber by the time you're finished.
Absolutely.
So to all of our listeners, next month, we're actually going to be starting a new series where we're actually launching our Oriant book club. So think Oprah's book club or Reese Witherspoon's book club, where we're actually going to be bringing a panel of experts to the table to discuss one of their favorite books, health, wellness, behavior-oriented, motivation, you name it. So we're bringing a book to the table next month called The Willpower Instinct. So keep your eyes out for that. Excited to discuss this book, let you know what it means and the best lessons to take out of it, and hopefully inspire you to get out there and read it. So circle back next month for our podcast for our first Oriant book club. And I look forward to having you all here then. And Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.